Joining me right now, Fox News contributor and former CIA Chief of Staff Daniel Hoffman. All right, I'm going to leave the media aside for a second in terms of how they're constantly contradicting themselves, Daniel, but I want to get at why this is happening and what Putin may have done, the Kremlin may have done, in order to basically undermine Americans' faith in our system. What is your theory?
Okay, so first, just let's look at what exactly Vladimir Putin is directing from the Kremlin. Cyber attacks against three targets. First, are voting installations themselves. Secondly, party campaigns, and we know that they've gone after the committees, the Democratic Committee and the Republican Committee as well. And then the third area, of course, is the social networking and media sites. And Putin really has two aims. The first is to degrade our trust in our democracy. Cyberspace in today's world is really the infrastructure on which our democracy is based. And if Putin can make us all believe, with a touch of conspiracy and his Cheshire Cat grin, that there's a Kremlin return address on a lot of those Facebook posts, then we may not trust social media. The second reason is he wants to be perceived, both at home and overseas, as being able to stand toe-to-toe through this asymmetric warfare with Russia's main enemy, the United States.
All right, so let's take it a step further, because we didn't mention this, but the viewers should know you have a background in intelligence. You actually ran the Middle East Bureau for the CIA. If you're Putin and you're trying to actually cause Americans to no longer trust their system of government, would you want to conjure up basically a scenario such as what we're looking at right now? And are there ways in which you would use intelligence gathering and people to do this?
Sure. I served 5 years in Russia, and I can tell you that Vladimir Putin and his intelligence cronies absolutely understands the social and political fissures in our own country. But then what's even more disconcerting is when we cause ourselves self-inflicted wounds, when retired senior intelligence officers like John Brennan claim that Putin could blackmail President Trump, speculation without facts, and retired General Clapper, the DNI, former DNI, claims that Russia tilted the election to President Trump, again, speculation without facts. That's doing Putin's bidding. We're already under a Kremlin siege. That's serving as a force multiplier for Putin's disinformation. So he's sitting back in the Kremlin with his guys popping off vodka bottles in celebration of how he's injected a virus into our system, and then it's kind of dinged around and we've made it worse for ourselves.
Do you think, as you look back over what happened, that there may have been some things sort of left out there for the left and the media to find? And I'm going to start here with that Russian dossier, the dossier that was compiled by Christopher Steele, who goes out and contacts all his Russian sources, and the Hillary-backed payment for his work. Do you think that Putin knew that dossier was being compiled and made sure to basically feed it, knowing that eventually that would work its way to our FBI?
Yes, I think based on my experience and cognizant that Steele never himself traveled to Russia, I can tell you it's really hard to gather information or intelligence inside Russia. That's what I did for a living for a number of years. And Steele essentially outsourced this collection, and I have no doubt, based on my experience, that the Russian FSB, that's their internal security police, would have detected this collection effort and then sought to seed their own disinformation into the dossier. Now, the way Russian propaganda, just like its KGB predecessor, works is that 95% of what they tell you is true because they want to establish their bona fides. But then they'll tell you a few things that are not true, which are designed to sway and influence the targeted audience after the audience has already become accustomed to reading things that they find to be truthful.
So it's possible that it was all a bunch of garbage that was directed to Christopher Steele by the Kremlin. Now walk me through, which, by the way, the Hillary camp paid for. Let's not forget. I mean, just if you want to talk about collusion, as so many people in the media talk about it, that might be worth looking into. On the other hand, you've got the Russian lawyer that sits down with Trump Jr., and that's seen as some kind of smoking gun for, well, surely there was collusion then with the Russians. What do you make of that?
So the Russians, their intelligence services, with which I'm very, very knowledgeable, I must say, based on my career, they run a variety of intelligence espionage operations against us. Some of them are extraordinarily clandestine, like when they ran the illegals operation against us, which we uncovered in 2010. That wasn't meant to be discovered. But other operations are what I call discoverable influence operations. That's when there's a Kremlin return address. So in the case of the Trump Tower meeting, there was no expectation of clandestinity. That's not where you go for a clandestine meeting. There's more security there than maybe anywhere on the planet. And you've got 3 Kremlin-connected people like Natalia Veselnitskaya, was a lawyer for the FSB, Akhmechin, who's a Soviet military officer, and Agaralov, an oligarch. It was preceded by an email from a British publicist. So there's no hint of clandestinity there. What they wanted to do was, yeah, I mean, the Russians have a great saying, the only free cheese can be found in a mousetrap. I think they were trying to set up the Trump campaign, and frankly, if people wonder whether Vladimir Putin only hates Democrats, he hates the Republicans, too. That's a good example. So is Maria Butina trying to infiltrate interest groups, which are really predominantly Republican membership, like the NRA. That was similarly designed as a discoverable influence operation. I've read her blog posts. She's all over social media, connected to the Kremlin, again, designed to soil our process.
Wow. And we've fallen for it, unfortunately. Yeah, Daniel, unfortunately, I'm out of time, but I hope you'll come back again next week because we got more to talk about.
With pleasure.
Daniel Hoffman, thank you.